Hi, ladies. This is Lutz Herrington, and I'm super excited to be here today. I've got a very good friend of mine from long time. We've known each other, MeShawn. And MeShawn Dimos, she is with, I guess the acronym is PPLSI. We like to just call her Legal Shield and ID Shield. She's going to tell us all kinds of stuff about how to protect yourself legally and how to help protect your identity during or after or whatever stage you're at with financial abuse. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on her because she's got some fascinating history, and then we're going to get into some really good questions. And I appreciate all of you being here today for this. I think it's going to be really, really beneficial for everyone in the group. So, MeShawn, you're originally from Guam. That's an unusual place to be from.
Yeah, it is. It's as far west as you can go and still be in the United States.
Okay, good to know. And you've had a career in real estate. You worked for an airline. You were a CAC operator and site security manager and a building operations manager at Camp Roberts. Did I get all those titles right?
You did, and a few other things in between too. So I've done a few things and been around a little bit. I like to think I'm a little bit like the little guy in Game of Thrones, where he drinks and knows things. I don't drink so much, but I do try to know things.
Yeah, no, it's important to have variety, and that's a skill set to be able to shift from one thing to another. You also won some awards when you were at Camp Roberts, and now you've gone on to, while during all that, and from then on, you've done a lot of volunteer work. You're a very active member in the community. I mean, I saw in your bio you listed that you were a Templeton Chamber of Commerce ambassador, and I believe that's when I met you. Was back then.
It was.
Yeah.
We were both in the Templeton Chamber. That was a really great experience. I got to meet so many people being an ambassador, and I was lucky enough to be Ambassador of the Year one year as well. I shared that actually with my mom, who I work with, as you know. So
Yeah, congratulations.
to share that with her.
Yeah, and then you've also been a president of the Templeton Women's Charitable Club. You're a member of the Tascadero Chamber of Commerce currently, and you're involved in Ambassadors of the Ladies of Justice. I'm really curious of what that is. I haven't heard of that one before.
Well, the Ladies of Justice is actually it's kind of a subcommittee of our Legal Shield group. And what happened was, some of the ladies in Legal Shield thought, women kind of do things a little differently. We sell differently. We want to enjoy ourselves while we're doing sales or whatever. We want to share things. We don't really necessarily want to sell. And so the Ladies of Justice allows us to, it's about helping women. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that the Ladies of Justice is there to help women elevate themselves. And then through that, we're able to do things like have parties. Instead of doing business meetings, we're able to have a party or go wine tasting or do some fun stuff, bring stuff that brings your kids involved. And that way we're able to share our message and still keep the whole family involved as well.
Right. So like that, women and men do business very differently. I write about that and talk about that frequently. I think it's fascinating. I haven't checked recently, but in the past, I've looked at my list of clients to see, are we heavier on women? And we've pretty much fallen 50-50. 50% male owned, 50% female owned, which is kind of interesting. I'll have to check it now that we're talking about that. But having worked with a lot of men and a lot of women business owners and seeing how they approach it differently, I think women lead with their hearts.
Very much so, very much so. And that's why, like I said, we like to share more than we do like to sell.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. I love that. You're also a domestic violence and financial abuse survivor, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Big sigh there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I'm mostly kind of, as you would say, over it. I've worked a lot on myself over the years to be able to deal with what I went through. Early on, when I was about 19, I got together with a guy who was really great for about 6 months. And for the next 3.5, 4 years, I was trying to get away from him. And ultimately, I mean, he was more verbally and emotionally abusive, mentally cruel. Didn't hit me too much, but once in a while there was that. But I couldn't to anybody. He actually would sit at the airport. I worked at the airport overnight, and he would actually sit at the airport all night because, of course, he didn't work, right? Because I was working.
Right.
And he would sit there at that airport and watch me all night. And I worked at the check-in counter. So of course my job is to smile at people and make them feel welcome. And if I smiled at a man too much, too big, oh boy, would I get it later.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, he didn't work. So there's the financial abuse. Not only did he not work and come and hang out at my job, but he'd cause a fight just before I would leave for work, just stuff like that that would almost keep me from being able to go to work or get me fired. Actually, he did do that once, got me fired once.
Yeah, I can imagine if he's hanging out where you're working, that's not appropriate in any normal situation at
Not
all.
at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately was also a victim of a financial abuser, an online financial abuser. I allowed myself to my self-esteem to fall low enough to fall into that trap, and lost quite a bit of money through for that. So
I'm sorry to hear that, but I know that you're a strong woman. You've been through a lot and you've recovered. Like you said, you're well on your way to recovering, or, are we ever done growing? No, you're probably still growing. If I know you, what's the next challenge, right, MeShawn? You're always on for what's next, what's next. Well, I love that you're part of the group, and I love that you have a resource to offer the group. So I'm going to dive into kind of tell us a little bit about what is Legal Shield and ID Shield, and how could a woman who was either being currently financially abused or is in recovery from financial abuse, really, how would that fit into, what are you offering? How would it relate to women in this group?
absolutely. So Legal Shield, I'll start with that. Legal Shield is, we like to call it a life events plan. It's an affordable legal plan. It's a subscription service, of course. You pay a small monthly fee and you have access to lawyers basically 24/7. If you have emergencies, we do have an emergency line. You can contact the lawyers 24/7. But you get unlimited consultation with the lawyers. That we do your will, durable power of attorney, and your health directives and all that. That's something we want all our members to have. And then, there's a multitude of other things, contract review. So if somebody was going to go get a rental or something and wanted to have their contracts reviewed before they signed, we do all that. And then ID Shield is, of course, an identity theft protection plan, but it goes way past that. It's also a reputation management plan. And so you can actually have it monitoring your social media and make sure that, for instance, if you get hacked and somebody starts posting obscene stuff, which just recently happened to my cousin, and they actually tried to get me through that. Yeah, some stuff like that. Or if somebody's mentioning you in a negative light, you want to make sure that you find that kind of stuff. So the ID Shield will actually monitor all of your basic information, of course, your social security number, your date of birth, making sure that stuff's not being sold on the dark web. But we also we have a dashboard where you can actually go in and put in your credit card numbers, your bank account information, and actually have those monitored all in one place. And that's very important, of course, when you're dealing with any kind of divorce, because even with I was divorced once, and while he didn't necessarily financially abuse me, when we were getting divorced, he went and took out a bunch of money out of our credit card, which I didn't think he'd know how to do that. I didn't think he was smart enough to increase the credit limit and then bank and then take all the cash out, which of course messed my credit up big time.
Well, I'm sorry, that is financial abuse, MeShawn. He may not have been financially abused during the marriage, but during the divorce he was. And we do see it happen after the fact. We do see it.
True. But yeah, had I realized that had happened right away, I didn't realize it until much later. And I couldn't, at that point, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have this service then, so I didn't have anybody to contact. And I was doing most everything on my own. I did my whole divorce on my own. And I know that I would have been better off had I had an attorney. So when in respect to the women going through everything here, obviously you see it all the time. I wish I had an attorney. I don't have an attorney. I can't afford an attorney. Well, most of us can afford $30 a month, $1 a day. Most of us can squirrel that away for something this important, and especially limited, advice and consultation on any of your personal stuff. So if you have a problem with with where you think there's fraud happening, where you think your spouse or your significant other has taken out loans or something in your name, that is fraud, and that is covered. And if you have both the ID Shield and the Legal Shield together, we actually offer credit counseling too. So that's something that can help the ladies as they're rebuilding. So
Oh, no,
obviously,
I didn't realize that.
the whole package is just really something that women are going to want to look at, especially if they have kids with the ID Shield. You want
Yeah,
to make sure that your former, your ex-spouse or your significant other is not using their information fraudulently. It would
right.
not be the first time that a parent or grandparent has used a child's information and caused them to have problems once they hit 18 and they try to go get their own credit.
Yeah, I have heard stories of that, and that's really sad. But abusers are abusers, and they don't care if it's children or not. So if a woman is, thinking about this, like, is there a particular stage like that would be the best for her to, like, if she's still with a man, if she's just left him, if she's, into recovery and ready to work on her will, is there a stage in a woman's process, the journey that we all go through from being in abuse to trying to recover to sort of getting into that financially savvy? Is there a stage in there that you would recommend this for women?
I honestly recommend this as early as possible because there are so many, like I said, it's a life events plan, really. It's not just to help you through the financial abuse and all that. There's so many other things happening in our lives that could require an attorney. If you go to a big box store and you buy something and it fails and they don't honor their warranty, you want to have your lawyer. I mean, why
Right,
not? If nobody goes after $200 issues with a $400 lawyer. But if you
right,
have a $30 a month lawyer already basically on retainer, why wouldn't you go get your money back?
right.
So that's the
Okay.
whole idea, is to help empower you every single day of your life.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, can you tell us a story about how you were able to assist a woman who was being subjected to financial abuse
I have not.
without breaching any confidentiality, of
I
course?
can't
But
say that I have directly had any ladies that had financial abuse. I mean, nobody has told me that that's their situation.
yeah,
I do know that in my situation, had I had this, I would have been able to have advice and consultation that would have helped me figure out what to do next. Especially like you said, okay, so my ex did financially abuse me with that money that he took out. Had I realized that he took it out immediately, I would have been able to contact my ID Shield folks, and they would have said, yeah, that's fraud. And then I would have been able to contact my lawyer, who would have been able to help me figure out what direction I needed to take. Do I just need to write him a letter and say, hey, you better pay this back? Do I need to go to court? They would have been able to tell me exactly what I could do or what I
right.
needed.
Okay.
And same
Okay.
thing with divorce. I mean, I did everything by myself. And,
Right.
uh, I was too amiable. I was too nice. So
Right.
you
I
need
think most of
somebody
us
between
are.
you. Somebody times you need somebody between you and your ex, because a lot of times there is still love.
Right.
You still feel love for that person, and you don't want to hurt them. And
Well, and they're often,
you're so nice. And
yeah, and
once
if they are emotionally
you love
abusive,
up,
there's often fear of confrontation because
yeah,
you've been abused, or if you're physically abused, of course, you've got safety issues.
yeah. So
But I
sometimes
think
that's where it's really
someone,
nice to have an attorney in between you and that ex.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so what would you recommend for a woman who's been through financial abuse and is into recovery at this point? How would this benefit a woman who's like through the worst of it? Let's put it that way. Through the worst of it, rebuilding her life, obviously keeping the ID shield kind of thing would protect her in case of, in general, fraud, like you saying, social media attacks, that kind of thing. Is there
Yeah.
any other benefit specifically to someone just because she's been through financial abuse that either of these services would offer? I like the credit counseling one. I didn't know about that.
What's that?
Sorry. I like the credit counseling option. I didn't know that that was available. That's good to
Yeah.
know that, I talk about that in the group sometimes. So,
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. The credit counseling is huge for a woman that's recovering, especially if she's not really sure where to start. You provide so many great resources, though. So
thank
thank you
you.
for that. I've seen some of the stuff that you posted, and it's a lot of it's stuff that I've used in my journey.
Thank you. Yeah.
Figuring out where to pay your debts off and stuff like that, and what to pay
Right.
for, and that's really important stuff. So that can be very helpful. Um, Again, going back to contract review.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get into a rental or any sort of contracts that you're going to sign. You want to have those checked before you sign them, because you don't want to, even if you think you understand. I mean, I was in real estate. I think I understand contracts, but I still have them review my contracts, because if
Right.
there's anything I missed,
Right.
that would be big down the road.
Well, and also if you're looking at, depending on the situation, we know financial abuse comes in all kinds of forms. But if you were looking at a situation where the woman was really what we've referred to as the outspouse and wasn't really comfortable with contracts or comfortable with financial decisions in general, is there any other educational resources for someone like that?
Well, just having the lawyers be able to give you advice on stuff, that to me has been an education in itself. The other day, this is kind of funny, but the other day I called, there's a gal in the neighborhood here who posted on one of our local neighborhood forums, and she's going through a divorce, and she has a horse that she needs to move.
Mm.
And I have a horse, I have a little bit of space. I thought, oh, maybe I could let her keep her horse here because, my heart opens up, right? I want to help. So knowing probably not really a good idea, I went ahead and called the lawyers because
Yeah.
I can. I mean, why not get their opinion? And so when I did talk to the lawyer, she actually told me, of course, what I expected, which was, I don't suggest that you do this.
Right.
But if you do, make sure you cover yourself with a good contract, which I would, of course, have had them review for me and make sure it was correct. But the other thing is, she gave me a resource for women who are, or domestic abuse survivors. I'm sure they probably help men too, because there are a few of those. But for survivors who are looking for, are in dire need of a place to put their animals or take their animals. And so she gave me that resource. I mean, she's my lawyer. She's a lawyer. But
Right.
she gave me this rescue resource,
Right. I've heard of those. I've heard of those.
The great
Yeah.
thing about this plan is because our lawyers are already paid for, they're not looking for ways to charge you money. They're looking for ways to help you.
Right. Right. Okay. That's good to know. Good to know. And like you said, it's relatively affordable. So if you're sitting in a position of feeling lacking in confidence in your financial skills, or you're feeling like you could be at risk for fraud, or you could be at risk for someone doing something that you wouldn't necessarily know because you were not the person in the relationship who really signed all the contracts or reviewed the information or made those decisions, it might be a really good place to learn and to understand and have that kind of that peace of mind, really, of knowing that there's someone watching your back. All you have to do is reach out and ask.
Absolutely. And another thing for especially for the women with kids, I like to really talk about the women with kids because they don't realize how many resources are truly available to them, and how at risk their kids are, especially for identity theft. And that's not just from their ex, but from the world.
Right.
There are
Right.
so many kids that have identity theft, like I said, and they don't learn this until they turn 18 and they want to go get their first car or something. And
Right.
that's how awful to find that out and then not be able to fix it. And
Right.
I've known people that went years without being able to fix that problem.
Right.
So the great thing is that the kids are covered until until they turn 18. They're covered under the ID Shield. Under the Legal Shield, they're covered just like with insurance, where if they're full-time students, they're covered up until they're 26,
Okay.
or if they live at home. But ID Shield, there is a cutoff of 18 just because of the private information. So then they need to
Right. But they could get it themselves once they turn 18.
Yeah.
And that would be the
But they're
encouragement.
covered on that, and they're covered on the ID Shield or on the Legal Shield. And especially like when your kids go off to college, like right now, there's a bunch of people that have just dropped their kids off for the first time. And those kids are off by themselves. They have no mommy and daddy right there to help them. They could have their app with their lawyer on speed dial, basically. So if they ever
Okay.
have a problem, they have access to it.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So looking back, one of our group members asked if she could file a lawsuit for identity fraud against her ex who used her name without her permission. And she's wondering about a federal case because the ex is locally very well connected. And she's basically getting stonewalled by judges and, legal officials because he's the big cheese in the community, if you will. So she wanted to know, is there a way to file a case federally? And I don't know if this is anything you know about, but I figured I'd start and ask you that. And also she wanted to know, will the IRS help? Do you know about either of those?
I don't. One of the things I do want to make sure I mention on this is I am not an attorney. So
Right,
everything is
right.
my own experience, my own research, and anything, from dealing with this for the last 10 years. But that is definitely something that having a law firm that's not in your town can actually be a good thing, because the way our system works is we have a law firm in each state. And
Okay.
so that's the main law firm. Sometimes they do refer out to a more local, depending on the situation, but that is something that that could be discussed with the attorneys and let them know, hey, I think, this is the case that my ex is very connected, and they maybe
Yeah.
help direct things better to help get, get things situated better to help to be more fair.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women face that if they're, married to powerful men is,
Well, and who do you
how do you
call?
get fair representation if he's a bigwig in a small community or
Exactly. If you live in a small town, what attorney do you call?
yeah.
So at least if you have something like this where you're calling an attorney that's outside of your local neighborhood, you're more likely that they're not going to know your husband or your spouse or whatever, and you're not going to be dealing with that.
Yeah, that would be good advice to get someone who can be situated somewhere else. Okay, so do you know if there's federal law for identity theft or is that a local law? Do you even know that?
It's still depending on what it is, especially, but it is still considered identity theft if it's your spouse that does it. It is.
No, I get that, but do you know if it's covered by local law or if it's a federal
I
law
think
or
federal. I
both?
think identity theft is a federal offense.
Okay,
Be
okay.
sure.
I wasn't sure on that. We have a really good resources page on our website, of course, and if you're not on there, we'll get you on there for sure, MeShawn, because I think this is an opportunity for women to get the resources they need at a reasonable price. So another member of our group successfully won a case of innocent spouse with the IRS and will no longer be responsible for the debt that was accrued during her marriage. And it was quite significant. So I was super excited that she posted, I don't know if you saw that post, but she was saying, I won this case because he didn't contest it. I mean, she was close. I think she has a couple more days, but we're going to all root for her and hope that that happens. But can your company help a woman file an innocent spouse protection of some kind?
Sure, if you call the attorneys and that's what they think would help you, they can help you do all that kind of stuff. Anything that is not covered, actually covered under the plan, automatically will also get 25% off. So a lot of things, your advice and consultation is going to be all included in the monthly cost. But anything that's not included will automatically get that 25% member discount.
Okay, so if it goes beyond the scope of the plan, it is available, but you pay an additional amount for that. Okay, and like I said, I don't want this to be an advertisement, but this is a resource for our team, and you are the representative that I know. So I'm happy to introduce you to the team, to the group, and see if we can offer another resource for people. The other thing that I heard in the group recently was someone filed a restraining order for financial abuse. Have you ever heard that?
I had never heard of that. I mean, I'd always heard, I tried to file one when I was going through domestic violence, but I never heard of it for financial abuse. That's interesting, but
I thought so too. And she said, the police got it and they're like, how do we enforce this? And I'm like, yeah, that would be the question. How do you enforce a restraining order? I mean, I wonder if it sets, like they can't use the credit cards or they can't use
that's
something like that.
Yeah, I'm curious how that would work.
I'm so excited because this group, just as we grow very, very organically, very slowly, and I'm super frustrated with that because I feel like there's so many women out there who need this resource, and I really hope that we take off. But I learned so much. I would just keep learning and I just keep sharing because I feel like someone needs to be the voice here. And having my own personal experience and, feeling like I have the financial savvy but I don't know the legal part, and I don't, there's things that I don't know. So I'm super excited when the group comes together and supports one another in this way and offers resources and tells their stories, because we learn from those and we get encouraged. I just was like, oh my gosh, this woman who won the IRS case for innocent spouse. And you probably have heard me talk. My next interview is going to be with John Fauché, who is an innocent spouse attorney specializing in innocent spouse law. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to him, and he may have more insight. But I thought, wow, this is just, it wasn't something that applied for me during my divorce. It wasn't necessary, but I can see how it could be really important for some people. So I'm super excited that we have that coming. Okay, so what is something you would tell every woman that you think she should know to protect herself from financial abuse. You've been through it. You must have gone back out in the dating world. You're married again. How do you make sure it doesn't happen again? Or how do you protect yourself if you happen to come across this group and you haven't had that exposure? Maybe someone in your family did or something, so you're getting savvy about it. What would you recommend?
Well, the first thing I would recommend to every woman, and especially to teach their daughters, is self-esteem.
Mhm.
Honestly, if my self-esteem had been better, if I'd have been working on it more, and I mean, because you do have to work on that. I'm sorry, I've been heavy all my life. You have these things, right? Everybody has their thing. That have kept me from being as vulnerable as I was. So, I mean, really, you do need to protect your heart, and doing that, you need to use your head. So really work on yourself. Make sure you love yourself. Be your own best friend. That's the first point of advice. The second one is, don't let somebody else handle everything. Don't let them handle everything. Either you handle it, share that responsibility, and make sure that everything is on the up and up. And when you start seeing red flags, pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Really pay attention to the red flags, because they're there and we just ignore them because, again, our hearts, and we want to believe that somebody is not doing something bad to us. But please pay attention to the red flags and get out early.
Yeah, no, you speak my language, MeShawn. I would say the exact same thing. So that's perfect. I love hearing it from someone else who's been through it, who's well on her way to recovery, is doing well, financially as well as romantically. And that's, not where I go, but it's always good to hear someone who's been through it and found a different path and is able to, move forward in your life in a way that you are financially savvy, but you're also happy, I think. And I think that's really great to see.
Mostly, every marriage has its issues, and I can tell you that if I ever get out of this marriage, I'm not doing it again.
I hear you. I hear
I'm
you.
not doing this again, so don't worry.
Yeah, well, but I'm sure it's very different for you this time around, and that you handle the finances different than you have in the past.
Absolutely. I was handling the finances with my ex, but that didn't necessarily give me control, right?
Right. No, I was the in spouse, and it still happened to me.
Yeah.
And it happened after. It happened after, during the divorce and after the divorce, and trying to get him to pay what he legally owed me. And, everybody's like, go after him, Sherry, go after him. And to me, it was like, why poke the bear when the bear has nothing to give? It just felt like
You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. And my ex decided to end up living behind a gas station for a little while. So, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah. Well, mine has gone on to financially abuse other women that I'm aware of. And I'm sure that's what he's working on right now with the next one. And, it's sad, but I think your point of self-esteem is huge. I feel the same way. Just shedding the weight of walking away from a relationship that doesn't serve you is super empowering to have the strength to do that as the first step.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end there.
My first one, the abusive one, the physically abusive one, I ended up having to call the police on him, and because he was threatening to kill himself, with the two dullest knives in the drawer. And when the police came, I actually just about threatened to kill him, because I told him, get him out of here. One of us is going to end up dead, and I can't guarantee it's going to be me.
Yeah.
So I was thankful that one of the police officers knew me and knew I was not serious.
Not serious enough to take you in for a threat, but knew you well enough to know that your life was in harm.
At that point, that really was how I felt. I was not going to be abused anymore, and now I'm at that point where I will not allow that to happen to myself ever again, ever.
Right. Well, and that's where I've been talking about boundaries recently, and the great book I put up on the group, because that's, I think it's low self-esteem makes it really hard to hold strong boundaries, because you don't feel like you're worthy of respect or being treated well or any of those things. So yes, absolutely. Knowing yourself, like you said, loving yourself, having that self-esteem, and then, like you said, knowing what's going on financially and being aware and tuning in.
Demand it or leave.
Yeah.
Demand it or leave. Because if they're not willing to share that part of their lives with you, there's something else they're probably hiding too.
Well, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's hard because you love this person. And that's where it's really blurry and gray and mucky and hard. And,
Relationships are crazy.
not easy. But, you've known me a long time and you've seen me on my journey. I've seen you on your journey, and the difference in how you approach life, the success you find, personally and financially and in business, it really does come back to you when you build that self-esteem and you learn how to manage your own money and you take control of your life. And I think that's doesn't exclude you from having a partner. It doesn't exclude you from having a good partner. It just teaches you to take care of yourself first. And I think it's, the meaning of this mission is to get everybody to really stand up for themselves, every woman out there to know that she doesn't deserve this and that she can take care of herself and take care of her family and really move forward with her life in a productive and positive manner. And I love that you've done that, and what you're doing supports other women. I think that's great, MeShawn. I really admire that about you.
Thank you. That's one thing I really love about the Ladies of Justice Ambassadors is that, like every Wednesday, we have a Women's Empowerment Wednesday, and everybody's invited to that, so you don't have to be an associate. But it's all about empowering ourselves with personal development and professional development, and that helps the self-esteem, obviously. So, that's where this journey for me for the last 10 years, I'm sure you met me early on, and I'm sure you noticed the difference in how I present myself and my confidence levels and everything like that. Doing this for the last 10 years is what really helped me get to the place I'm at now.
Right. Well, and likewise with my business. When I started my business right about the time I left my husband, and it's been an incredible journey. Yeah, I probably have known you most of that. I've been in business 12 years, so it probably was 10 years ago that we met. All right, MeShawn, last question for you. What is next for you and your business?
Well, I'm really trying to move more along the lines of the helping women, because I feel like that's where I'm being pulled.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a real tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
And so being around women was kind of a, I hate to say this, but being around women was not my favorite thing, being around a lot of women. And so now I'm like, but you're being pulled this direction because you're a woman and you've been through all this, and you need to, I feel like I need to share all this with other women and help them build that self-esteem and get to a place where they feel confident and they don't allow themselves to be abused.
That's huge, MeShawn. That's huge. And I love that because, my business, obviously with Sherrington Financial Fitness, I help men too. But with Strong Women Thriving, it's about the women. And that's where the title come from. And it is also my mission and my passion is to pay it forward, if you will, to pay it forward.
Yeah. And I certainly don't mean to exclude anybody. I'm happy to help men, of course.
Right.
Like getting into helping women with more education, financial education, and legal education, or whatever, some direction that path is kind of where I'm heading at this point.
That's fantastic. Well, we all need leaders. We need the whole bunch of us out there showing the way. And I think that it's one of, you've seen my title. I list myself as a way shower because when I was trying to figure out what am I doing and what do I call myself, that's what I want to be. I want to show the way for others. And I think you're doing the same thing, and that's lovely. So thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we go?
I just want to say good for you for standing up for yourself. Anybody that's in this group is obviously taking that step, whether you've actually made any steps toward that. You just being in this group is starting to stand up for yourself. So that's the main thing. Stand up for yourself as a woman, as a human being, and stand up for your children, especially. Don't allow them to be abused, because being in an abusive relationship and you have those kids sitting there watching that, they are being abused too, whether they're being touched or not. All that emotional abuse is going to affect them throughout their lives. So stand up for yourself and for your family.
Yeah, let's stop the cycle. That's how I see it. Show those kids by example what it means to be a strong woman, whether they're boys or girls. They both need to see it, because we see the pattern of abuse repeat over and over and over again. And if they're watching you be abused, they could easily become abusers. And we need to shut that cycle down with the younger generations. I totally agree with you on that, MeShawn. That's fantastic. Good comment. All right, MeShawn, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate having you. The group is going to be so excited. Your phone's going to light up. We will post your contact information if that's okay, and we'll add you to our resources group. and
Yes,
just go through.
absolutely. And I'm always available for questions or anything. Again, I want to share what I've got. I don't necessarily want to sell you anything, but if you feel like you need to talk about something, I'm happy to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you advice that way, but I've been around, so I'm happy to chat.
Right. And you're a member of the group, so they can just reach out directly to you. MeShawn
Uh,
Dimos is how you're listed, just like your name is on the screen here. So thank you again, MeShawn. It's been really good talking to you. I'm excited to see if the group picks up on this and if this is something that is helpful for women in the group, because I think you're right, cost effective, a way to get help when you're at your lowest and you don't have any money. And I probably could have used it a lot during my divorce too. So now that I know about it, right after the fact, but better late than never for some people and hopefully on time for others. So
yeah.
thank you so much, MeShawn. And
Thank you,
I look
Sherry.
forward to hearing your comments. And if anybody has any questions, we will post those. If they don't post them directly, we'll contact you. But of course, women are welcome to make comments and you will answer those. I know you're very active in the group. So thank you for being a member of the group and for sharing our mission with those that you come across. And I know you deal with a lot of women. If you're like me, you start talking about what you do, all of a sudden you're hearing stories left and right. I tell you, I can't get together with a group of women and mention what I'm doing and not have one person at least say that happened to me. And sometimes they don't even know it. They don't even know the term. So keep spreading the word, MeShawn. We appreciate that.
Will do. You have a great day. Thank you so much.